Okay, so I'm here with Tanvi Shah,
Yeah, hello.
influencer extraordinaire, business lady, and an all-around inspiration.
Thanks.
I have to say, I've been obviously watching your content, and it's amazing stuff. So, firstly, thank you so much for giving us the privilege of interviewing you. But really, we want to know your story. Who is Tanvi Shah? So let's start with that. Who
That
who
is
who is
such
Tanvi
a
Shah?
big question. I feel like it changes every day, to be honest. But I think, like, at the core, I'm just someone that is looking to make a difference, make a change, be a representation that I didn't have growing up. And yeah, just live a life that makes me happy and fulfilled, where I can balance my work and things that I enjoy on the side as well.
Because you must get a lot of obviously, young women, to be honest, even older women, just coming to you and be like, your content is very inspirational. And as a young independent female, how does that make you feel?
It's crazy how just me as like an individual has such a big impact, and sometimes I forget it, and then I go to an event or I step in a room and I have like a crowd of women just coming up to me saying how like something I said last year like changed their life, or a video I made about my degree like literally impacted their career. So I think it's such a nice feeling, and it's such an honor to know that everything I say and everything I do has an impact on people's lives. Also, then that comes with, the responsibility and the fear of, saying the wrong thing sometimes. So there's two sides to the coin. But I think knowing that like you can affect that many people in a positive way is such an amazing feeling.
And what motivates you?
I think, firstly, my parents. I'm Indian and they are from East Africa.
Yeah.
So my mum came from Kenya, dad came from Tanzania, and I feel like because they came to the UK and they had nothing, like we're not born into wealth, they didn't have like family businesses. They worked so hard and they worked their way up, and they provided a life for my brother and I that they never had, and I'm so grateful for them. But seeing what they did for me, one, I almost want to work hard so that I can pay them back and take them on holiday and treat them in a way that they treated us, but also do the same for my future kids. So I think like family, my future family and my current family, that is centered around everything I do.
So would you say family is a very important part of who you are and like, how you've got to where you are?
Yeah, definitely. I think my parents, my sibling, even just like my cousins and my wider community, all of that has had such an impact on like my upbringing and just how I am as a person.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm just silence that.
No, that's okay. I'll put mine. Yeah, that's all
Okay.
good.
So obviously I'm from a similar community to yourself. Did you ever feel like there was pressure from your family to kind of work a certain degree? Because obviously, brown culture, obviously it's changed now, but it's very much doctor, lawyer, accountant. These are kind of the three things that, you know, they encourage you for. But like, what was different about yourself, like your upbringing, and what kind of advice did your parents give you growing up?
Well, I never had outward pressure. Like my parents never said I had to be a certain type of person or go down a certain route. But I did end up doing economics at uni. I did
Yeah.
end up going into finance. I'm a qualified accountant.
Yeah.
So I did all of the things that like a brown kid should do.
Yeah.
Both my parents are accountants. So I probably subconsciously like went down that route, seeing how stable their life was and how they were able to provide for us in that way. Growing up, my parents were great in that they always supported the academics, but also everything else. So my brother and I are really sporty, which I'm sure we'll talk about in a bit. But if you're playing sports to a high level, which we both were, you need parents that support you.
Yeah.
So they would always, take us to training, matches, buy us the kit because it's expensive playing sports. And they supported all of that, but they always said at the forefront of everything has to be your academics. So you're allowed to do whatever you want as long as you're getting the grades, as long as you're
Get
passing
good
your
grades.
exams.
Yeah.
So that was almost my motivation. I was really academic at school. Like I'm that girl that is just annoying. Like if I got a B, I would be so upset.
Really upset, yeah.
So I always like worked really, really hard at school, but my motivation was so that I could continue doing the fun stuff on the side. It was always stuff on the side.
So you're an all-rounder that ended up in the University of Nottingham,
Yeah.
basically, and obviously, was the process in like obviously University of Nottingham? Now we're talking about a new life. We're talking about living away from home, unless you did a long commute, which I doubt. You're living away from home, meeting new people. Now that can be daunting for a lot of people. Like how was it for you? How did you find that?
I think I threw myself into the uni experience. Growing up, I was always a really sociable person. And I think doing the extracurricular stuff helped. Like, I did sports, I did drama, I did music. I was part of like youth clubs outside of school. So from a really young age, like I was used to meeting new people and socializing and making new friends. So that part of it came really easy to me. And especially because at Nottingham, I already knew like half of the people already there and the year above, the people
Yeah.
coming with me. So I found that a bit quite easy. I think what I found hard was like becoming an adult. Like overnight, you're expected
Yeah.
to like cook, clean, do your laundry. And don't get me wrong, I was doing some of it at home, but nowhere near to the
You brought
extent
it back
that you
home,
need.
didn't you? Did you bring it home? Don't lie. Did you bring it home?
On occasion, I definitely
Yeah.
brought my laundry back home
Yeah.
because the washing machines and like they
Yeah.
give you in first year are shocking. So I think that's what hit me. It's like becoming an adult overnight and having to do all of that alongside balancing the social life that you don't want to get left behind in and your degree where you're no longer being spoon-fed your academics. Like you really have to have that like self-discipline and motivation to get up and go to your lectures and revise for your exams. So all of that is a massive shock to the system, and I think it took some time for me to really get used to it.
So do you think a degree, because obviously on previous podcasts, I've mentioned that a degree is a piece of paper. Ultimately, you can throw it in the bin. I went to university for experience and finding out who I was. What is your comments on a degree is a piece of paper, or do you feel like, no, it's absolutely needed in this current climate?
I don't think it's absolutely needed in the current climate. And I think a lot has changed since when I went to uni, which was only like 5 years ago, to now, but where there are so many other opportunities like apprenticeships, vocational schemes. I think it's better that the world is shifting towards a place where they recognise not everyone is super academic and really good at exams, because some people are better at like business skills, some people are better at people skills, and you can't really test that via an exam. So I don't think it's absolutely necessary. However, I don't think I would be where I am if I didn't have my degree, because I wouldn't have got my first job if I didn't have my degree. I probably wouldn't have got my second job if I didn't have my degree. I probably wouldn't have sailed through the ACA exams if I didn't go to uni and do my degree. I've got friends now whose younger siblings, you know, they were doing GCSEs and A-levels through COVID. They've never sat an exam in their life, and they've gone into apprenticeship, so they've not gone to university. And now at the age of 20, they're having to sit an exam because they want to do a professional qualification. So I think having, you know, that experience of life and actually like balancing work and social life was the best thing about uni. And I think it's got me to where I am today.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. So you spoke about obviously stability, which is I think a quite important word. So one question: risk or stability?
I'm a risk taker.
Okay, I knew that answer. But
I
yeah.
quit my corporate job, right, to become self-employed. If I was all about stability, I would still be working at the Big Four, like grinding my ass off every day. I think it's so important to take risks, especially when you're younger. I obviously am lucky, like I don't have children. I didn't have a mortgage at the time, so I could afford to take that risk. So it has to be a calculated risk rather than like just jumping in the deep end with no plan. So I think, it's good to take risks, but you also need to know roughly what you're doing and where you're headed with it.
Okay. And obviously your corporate job, like for me, that was obviously my discovery as well. I realized I couldn't work for anyone else in that period. Your length was a bit longer because you worked for multiple different companies. So did you have like a eureka moment which said, you know what, I just can't do it anymore?
Kind of.
Yeah.
I think it was gradually building in the background. And I never ever thought I wouldn't work a corporate job. It was never something in my mind. And I think there was a 2-week gap where in those 2 weeks, the opportunities I was offered and like the events that I missed out on because I couldn't go because I had a job, I was just like, what am I doing with my life? Like, it's not every day you get asked to be on the BBC radio. It's not every day that you get put on a billboard in the middle of Piccadilly Circus. And I was like going into Canary Wharf into my office job. Like it was like double life. So I just thought, I think it's time I just give myself the opportunity to try and make something of this. It's not going to last forever. If not now, then when? So I think within a 2-week period, I went from like never thinking I'm ever going to quit my job to being like, what am I doing with my life? And I literally resigned like the day after.
Are you sure you don't have a secret twin? Because I remember that content when you were putting that out, and I remember I think it was a big time in your life when you said you were making like some hard decisions and about to move into it, and you weren't sure. But from the outsider's view, so from our view here, we thought there was 2 of you.
I'm not surprised because by day I was like banking in capital markets, and by night I was like a content creator and presenter. And I really love, like, if I had 100 billion hours in the day, and if I had multiple arms attached to my body, I probably still would be doing that, because I loved having the diversity of having like a stable job that really challenged me intellectually. I got to work in a team of people, but then also I had like a massive creative outlet where I could just do my own thing. So if I could do both, I would. But the problem is, like, there's only one of me and there's only so many hours in the day. And that's when I really started to struggle, because in any job, whether you're self-employed or employed, like, you're always looking for the next thing. You always want to get promoted, or you want to take the next step. And in order to do that, something else has to give. Like, there has to be a trade-off, whether it's your time, your energy. And so in order to progress with both of those things, it became physically impossible. So I almost had to pick one.
So obviously, like, you know, you're touching upon like hours in the day. So walk me through like what a day in the life of Tanvi looks like.
Oh, I wish I could tell you that.
Or is it all just like random, you think?
Yeah, I don't think any 2 days are the same. An ideal day, I can tell you, is I get up, I look at my emails really briefly, reply to anything urgent, speak to my management in case there's anything that's pressing from the night before. Then I'll probably just like take time out to go to the gym, do some exercise. I really like going in the morning because I feel like it gives me a boost of energy. And then I come home and the world is my oyster, because I'll either have a shoot, a recording for a podcast, a radio recording, I'm in studio. I will have an event, I'll have a meeting with clients, I'll have a meeting with other content creators. I will have a block where I need to actually film and edit content. There's so much variety in this job, and I probably just only scratch the surface with what I've just listed. So every day is so varied.
So obviously Octopus Tanvi, that's what I'm going to call you from now on. There's so many different things. But one thing that has really like struck a chord is creator space. So that is something new that you guys are doing, and that just tell us a little bit about it. How did you get into it, and how did it all start?
Yeah, so for anyone that doesn't know, the Creator Space is essentially a network for UK-based content creators. We like to just bring people together, whether it's in-person events, online communication, and it's all about just creating a safe space and a community for content creators. The reason it came about is because myself and my two fellow founders, we actually met on a Samsung campaign, and it was the campaign that we were all on the billboard in Piccadilly Circus. And at the time, I think I was still working my corporate job. One of them had just quit and he's a lawyer, and one of them was thinking about quitting and he was in banking. So like us three had come from like the corporate world, and we were all slowly shifting towards just doing content creation full time. 6 months later, we all just met up for brunch, just like to catch up as friends. And it turns out we'd all quit our jobs. We all shared very similar challenges in that we've gone from being somewhere where there's constantly like socials and a team environment and people to talk to about things, and you have seniors and juniors and that kind of hierarchical structure you get in a corporate world, to like completely on our own. So we faced really similar challenges. We felt often quite lonely and isolated as people that are now self-employed and content creators. We faced similar problems with, you know, PRs or brands like getting paid on time or them knowing what we want. So we just said, like, why not just create a wider space where we can talk about this and try and make a change? So we put on an event and it was a huge success. Didn't really think anything of it. And after that event, we were like, right, we're doing this. So since then, have put on 4 really, really successful events, from social events to panel talks. And we're looking to just continue to scale it up.
Okay. Do you ever feel alone?
Definitely. I think being in this job, you are alone a lot of the time. And even if you're in a room full of people, you can still feel alone because well, for me anyway, my business is my brand, it's my face. The hardships I face, I'm going through by myself because no one can quite relate. And then often my friends and family around me who don't work similar jobs don't ever fully understand my needs or my challenges or where I want to go or what I want to do, or just general day-to-day things. So when you sometimes feel a bit isolated when people around you aren't on the same page as you or don't always fully understand, it's easy to feel alone.
Have you ever been in a situation where you've been so rejected and so deflated that you said, you know what, I'm not doing this anymore?
Oh, I think we all have these thoughts daily. I was speaking to my founders yesterday about this, and it's like we can just have like a quiet period or a low day where we just don't hear anything back from any brands. You know, the engagement's dipped because of algorithm changes which are out of our control, and we just think, oh, we shouldn't be doing this. Like, we need to go and get another job. Like, I can't tell you the amount of times where I've been on LinkedIn just scrolling just to be like, oh, maybe I should just go and get a
Really?
job. Like,
Oh, wow. Okay.
because I think it's such a fluctuating industry, and sometimes the uncertainty of not knowing like what you're going to get paid at the end of the month can really affect you, especially when you're early on. Like, I have to constantly remind myself that this is my first year of being self-employed, and I'm in my mid-20s. Like, I've got a long way to go, and so you have to constantly remind yourself of that, because you are faced with rejection every single day. Like, brands will be like, we don't have budget, we don't have campaigns for you. Podcasters will be like, we don't have space for you on our podcast, you're not the right fit, we've decided to go in a different direction. Like, it's constant rejection. So if you're not passionate about what you do and your brand, it's really hard to keep going and pick yourself back up.
That's really surprising, actually, to me. I just thought you'd have like a full calendar Monday to Sunday and be like, nah, go away, I don't want to do it. But it's really, really useful.
I do, but you've got to think, like, I could fill up my calendar Monday to Sunday with opportunities that I have coming in left, right, and centre. But for me, it's like the brands I want to be working with and the level I now want to get to, which is a step up, are the ones where I have to now be like proving myself and fighting for my case, and that's the only way you grow. Right, I could stay at the same level and accept everything that comes to me and be comfortable, but that's not sustainable, and that's not going to really get me to reach my dreams in the long run.
Yeah. So, quality or quantity?
I guess it depends on the context. If we're talking just like, I don't know, social media posts, I would say like quality on an app like TikTok. Quantity on an app like TikTok is better than quality. But if you're talking about building like an engaged community, then I would say quality over quantity. So I guess it depends on the context.
So with quality and quantity, it's more now at the stage that you're in. Like, let's say you have a luxury brand that has come and approached you and said, you know what, like, could you please promote this product for us? But let's say offering you next to nothing. But it's a brand that you've worn, you like it, you know, and I think you respect the company. But they just, like you said earlier, don't have the budget, right? Or you've got someone, let's say, like a new brand, a new up-and-coming fashion clothing brand. I know you don't know a lot about this stuff, that, you know, wants to have an opportunity and is a fan of yours, but requires more, but is willing to say, you know what, the money's available, I really need you to launch it. Which one would you pick?
I don't think it's about the money. I think it's about the company and the person. So even if like the luxury brand offered me my fee, if I don't wear that brand, or I've never heard of them, or I personally can't afford it generally, or my audience can't afford it, I would definitely think twice about like having a campaign with them. And on the flip side, if a new and upcoming brand didn't have the budget, but I really believed in their vision and what they stand for, then like I'm also open to having that conversation. So everything is really on an ad hoc basis. And I think for me, the reason why have been successful is because I haven't just accepted everything for the money. I've been so selective with who I want to work with, and making sure every person that I work with and every brand that I choose to represent aligns with my values and my audience's values. So it's such an ad hoc thing, and you have to assess it case by case.
Okay, that's good. And does money buy happiness?
I don't think so, but I think it makes it easier.
It helps, yeah?
I think it helps. I definitely have learned, like, when I've had a good month, the mental stress of not having financial pressure and burdens is relieved. And then on the opposite, when it's been a month where it's not been exactly what I want, you then feel an immense amount of pressure to either, you know, do more, make more, or like, I don't know, I think it does help. I think anyone that says money doesn't make the world go round, it does.
Oh, it definitely does,
but it's not, you know, the
not
be all and end all. Yeah.
Oh, jinx. Right, okay, so obviously the way we see you now and the way you're speaking, you know, we've got the glamorous life, we've seen a bit of struggle, but there was quite a big bit of information that you released to your many followers about, you know, beauty and obviously what happened to yourself. Now, I'll let you take the lead on it. Just let us know what actually happened? How did it make you feel? Because obviously this is potentially life-changing, life-altering stuff.
Yeah. So I just like strip everything away. Like, I'm an ordinary girl who has suffered with skin problems my whole life. I had acne as a teenager, so bad I was on the strongest of medications. And because of that, I was left with so much scarring and damage on my face. So when you're a woman, let alone just anyone on social media, when you're a woman and in this 21st century, there is so much pressure to kind of look and feel good all the time. And so I started seeking solutions at clinics that, you know, claim to get rid of this and get rid of that, and they're the solution to all your skin problems. And then when you put that in the context of me then, you know, being on camera, being filmed and at photo shoots, I guess you become even more self-conscious. Like, your insecurities get so heightened. So I felt a little bit desperate to find a solution, because I was just like not comfortable in my own skin, which is really sad when you think about it, but everyone has insecurities. And at the same time, because I had such a growing presence on social media, I got approached by so many skin clinics because I would talk about my skin journey openly. Long story short, I ended up working with a skin clinic for a while. And then probably towards the end of our kind of treatment plan, the last stage of it, the third phase, was this really, really strong kind of laser treatment. I went in for this laser treatment and I ended up leaving with my entire face just burnt. If you want to see images, it's all on my profile. Like, it's really bad. And this was about a year ago. And I'm still left with the scarring and the damage from that. And it was such a horrible thing. I know it sounds really superficial because it's a medical treatment gone wrong. But imagine that's on your face and you, again, take away social media. You cannot look at yourself in the mirror. It literally made me cry every day for about 6 months. And then on top of that, my job is to be in front of a camera, is to film myself, is to be barefaced to promote skincare and makeup products. Not only did it make me not want to take on certain brand deals, which again has an impact on my finances, but like mentally and emotionally, it's probably one of the hardest things I've ever gone through, because it's on my face. It's not like a body part that I can cover up. It's my face.
So how did you build yourself up after that? Because that must have been a really tough time.
I think if makeup didn't exist, I probably would be hiding in a corner somewhere for the last 12 months. So yeah, I'm really lucky makeup existed, because I got to a point where, because the scars had kind of died down and it was more just pigmentation, I could cover it up. So then I started kind of gaining the confidence to do it again. But I'm still not there. Like, without makeup, even things like going to the gym, I'm like conscious about still. And I think that sucks, that one small mistake and one kind of medical procedure gone wrong, which by the way, they've taken no responsibility for, which makes it 100 times worse, that can impact your everyday life. And I think I'm lucky that I have some inner confidence in me that's like keeping me going, but it's not been easy. Yeah.
And that's obviously not been the only thing prior to that. And obviously you've got a good sports background. You had some, is it ACL injuries?
Yeah,
two of them, or two ACLs?
I tore my ACLs twice, one on each leg. So that's probably, I think that's probably been the hardest thing I've ever had to go through. And then I did it again.
And was that while you were playing netball, or?
Yeah, so the first one, when I was at university, had a partial tear, did my rehab. 6 months later, went to a full tear. So I then had to have surgery on my leg. I actually had to delay my surgery because I was doing my final exams in third year at uni. So I delayed it by 6 months until I'd graduated, came home, had my surgery, which, if anyone hasn't firstly experienced the pain of tearing your ACL, and secondly, actually the surgery, it is one of the most physically difficult things I've ever gone through. It is so painful. And yeah, it's a year-long recovery. So after I did my recovery for the first leg, got back on the court, because that's all I ever wanted to do, was I'm only having surgery to get back on the court. Played for another 2 years, and to be honest, that's when I was at the peak of my netball career. I think because I invested so much time in the rehab of it all, I was stronger and physically better than I ever was before. And then 2 years into it, I ended up at a national tournament in Birmingham tearing the other leg.
Oh my God.
Which is apparently quite common, because you've already torn one, you're almost putting more
strain on the
weight
other.
and strain on the other. So then I tore that, and the minute I went down on the court, I knew exactly what I'd done. I booked myself in for surgery within 4 weeks, because I knew what I'd done. And that was last year. So I've done my recovery. I've actually played again since, but I just don't feel like mentally as confident as I used to. So now I'm just trying to pluck up the courage to get back on the court properly.
Yeah. But you're still doing it. I think that is really important. And you know, you're showing like younger people that listen, if you have something like two life altering things, well, three technically actually, because you're still here, you're still doing it, you're still active. I think that's really good to show that that's what you're doing. And you're also a massive Arsenal fan. Yeah.
Yes.
Massive Arsenal fan. So why Arsenal? Let's start with that. Why Arsenal? Let's start there.
Well, I'm probably one of the few people that actually supports a team that is my local team. I'm born and raised in North London, so Arsenal are my team. But also, my older brother supports Arsenal. My dad supports Arsenal, so I didn't really have a choice either.
That's it.
But yeah, my immediate family are huge Arsenal fans.
Do you think they'll win the league this year?
I don't want to jinx it. I said this last year and we didn't. But we are looking good, and I feel like we're building upon last season. So hopefully this season is our season.
And you don't play football or anything yourself. You just like.
I mean, I have in the past, but only for fun, just like community stuff,
recreational stuff. Yeah. Okay, that's fine. So if Thierry Henry walked through that door right now, what would you do?
I would ask him if I could interview him for my socials. And I'd also tell him to send a voice note to my brother, because he would die.
Still keep it professional. I like that.
Yeah.
Okay. And going back to, obviously, you know, what's next? Obviously, if I came back in 10 years' time and we did this interview again, where do you think you'd be in 10 years' time?
I couldn't even tell you where I'd be in 1 year's time, but I think... the world of social media changes so quickly. So like a new app can come out next week and it could change the entire course of my plans. But I think where I would like to be is running successful businesses, maybe taking a little bit of a step back in terms of always like having myself as the brand and in front of the camera. I think it's about scaling up. I think it's about having and continuing to have an impact on the wider community. I think community building is such a big part of social media, and I feel like I have done that, but it's almost like, where am I now directing everyone to? Whether it's an app, a business, a product, a service, whatever it is, that's kind of my next goal and my next phase. And who knows, because I literally used to watch football for fun, and like now I'm on AFTV, so it's just like the doors are constantly opening.
So what businesses would you like to set up?
I guess it touches upon what I've already just said, but I think for me, it's something that's genuinely meaningful, and it feels like there's a community. Even if it's a clothing line, there are some brands that do it so well, where they feel like you're part of something, where you feel like you're having a voice in the production process and the selection process of what is being sold to the market. So I think whatever it is, it's just making people feel like they belong, and especially people that look like me. Yeah.
And what advice would you give to, obviously you're still technically the next generation, but let's say the generation after you that is now either going into uni or starting their TikTok and Instagram careers or wanting to be a social media influencer? What kind of advice would you give them?
There's so much. I think it's important to diversify at all times, because for me, when I started my job in the Big Four, social media was nowhere near as big as it is now, and I'm really glad I stuck that out, because if social media dies tomorrow, I'm a qualified accountant, so I've got many strings to my bow, and I can always go and do something else if something fails or doesn't work out. So figure out what your passions are and continue to develop upon them, and just like continue to grow and learn new skills constantly. If you like video editing, like watch courses online and learn how to do that, but then don't give up on your A-levels or don't give up on your degree. I think it's really important to have safety nets and lots of different things that you enjoy as well, so that if one takes off or if one fails, you've got options.
The octopus is at it again.
Yeah.
I like it. Yeah.
And you get bored if you're only doing one thing. I think it's good to keep things interesting.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to ask you a few questions that have been asked by your followers.
Okay.
Very, very quick ones. I was supposed to do that at the beginning, but I'll do this now. Yeah? Okay. Kind of touched upon this. Okay. Brand names or no label? So just wearing it.
Context. Oh, no label.
No label.
Yeah.
Okay. Bollywood or Hollywood?
Bollywood.
I like it. Okay. Apprentice or Love Island?
Apprentice.
Okay. Netflix and chill or out to the club?
Oh, I'm in a phase where I've just shifted, so probably Netflix and chill.
Netflix and chill. Okay. Cats or dogs?
Dogs.
Okay. Free weights or cardio?
Cardio.
Okay. Work from home or work from the office?
Office.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And what is your theme song for, like, if you had a live theme song, what would it be?
Oh my goodness. This is so cheesy, but you know that song that's like, don't stop.
Yeah. Okay. Is
I
it?
just think I'm really resilient, and I
Yeah.
think you always have to believe and like have faith. That's
Yeah.
a good one.
Okay. Perfect. And the final bits are, if if you could say one thing, one sentence to those watching this podcast, what would you say?
Don't give up. Honestly, everyone has the potential to achieve things that they want to achieve, whether they think it or not. So have faith in yourself, believe in your source,
Yeah.
and don't give up.
So don't quit, basically.
Yeah.
See, I knew you would say that. That's why I made you a T-shirt.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. Yeah.
What does it say?
So Tanvi,
Don't quit.
real boss.
We
don't quit.
quit.
Yeah. So that's for you to take away.
Oh, thank you.
All right.
Yeah, love it.
I will get. Sean, are you here? You are. Okay. Hi there. You caught most of that, yeah.
Yeah.
So what I'll do now is, because I haven't touched upon the actual like more fashion side and the actual girl talk side.
Yeah.
I'll let Shauna take
Cool.
that away. Again, if anything is something that you don't want to,
I'll just say that's fine.
But don't quite. It's only 10:30, so
Nice.
just can just say like 5-10 minutes of whatever you think. But just flow with it and just and I'll listen in here.
Cool.
How you doing?
Good.
So, talk to me about like fashion. Like, how did you decide to get into that side of things?
My mum always loves to tell this story, but I've loved fashion since a kid. To the point where like we'd go in mother care, and my brother would be 3, and he'd be like, we have to go around this way so that she doesn't pick up this, and before you know it, when we get to the till, there's like a Barbie bikini and a Barbie sweater, and I'm like 2 at this point. So I guess I've always loved fashion. I think growing up as well, I went to really, really privileged schools, so people around me were always wearing like designer things and expensive items, and I couldn't ever afford that. So I was always looking for like the affordable versions, but still like looking and feeling just as good and expensive on the outside. And that's definitely something that I've taken with me in my brand now, because I feel like I don't personally believe in like splashing out on materialistic things, but I think fashion should be accessible to everyone, and everyone deserves to find their own personal style and wear outfits that make them feel good. So that's kind of where fashion started from and where it is now.
So, what's your like favorite fashion tip? If you were to say this to like as a big sister, say this like the younger generation, younger girls, what would you say?
I think understanding your style and what makes you feel the best and most confident is so important, because I used to feel like, oh, I'm a woman, so I have to wear like dresses and skirts, and that's kind of the box I should fit into a fashionable person. But then I've realized like I love wearing my New Balances and my Dunks and my trainers, and like I will wear them with a sari if I want to. So it's like figuring out what you enjoy and then like working your fashion sense around those items of clothing.
Yeah. So, what's your favorite fashion item at the moment?
Oh, that is a tough one. I guess because we're going into autumn, winter, I think it's like my oversized leather jacket. I shamelessly wear it with everything, and also my New Balances, because I just wear my New Balances with everything as well.
And, like,
and they're so comfortable.
So, we kind of like delved into this earlier, like personally, but like the whole boyfriend stuff, like it sounds so lovely. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, so I mean, ever since I've had TikTok, I always make content around like dating and then being single, and now I'm in a relationship, which is so nice. And obviously deciding whether to share that online or not was such a huge thing that I kind of went back and forth in my mind for a while, and I didn't for literally months and months. But I also think because my audience is connected to me personally, I think it's so important to share like every little bit of my life, as long as I'm still setting my boundaries and maintaining some level of privacy. So yeah, I've recently shared that like I'm in a relationship, and I honestly am so grateful to know that good men exist, and you can have really healthy relationships with men. And so I think that's been a huge part of kind of my journey, because having a support system, especially when it's a family or relationship, is so important, and it like impacts your career massively.
So you said earlier about boundaries. How did you set them, and what was it that made you say, okay, I need to put this into practice, kind of thing?
Yeah, I think it's so easy to go on TikTok or go on Instagram and see like all these couples creating content and being, and it does well. Like
Yeah,
it's
of course.
content that does well. If I want views and engagement, like I would only ever post myself with my boyfriend.
Yeah.
So I almost had to remove myself from all of that and think, okay, like what am I actually comfortable with, and also what is my partner comfortable with,
Yeah.
because he's not a social media person, and so you really have to think like, what do I actually want the world knowing, and what do I want to keep private. So like no one knows his name, no one knows his job, no one knows where he lives, but they know that like I am in a happy and healthy relationship, and I will 100% share things as to like how I got there and things I'm learning, because I think that benefits my audience.
Yeah.
But I don't need to touch upon things that cross boundaries other than that.
So you said about like obviously your boyfriend not being on social media. Do you think that's something that added to your relationship being so good? Because it's like him not being part of that, it's not like he's just trying to like use you to like get up in the like hierarchy as such.
So it's true. I think it depends on the person.
Yeah.
Because you can still be with someone who's in the same industry as you, but is in like a completely unrelated field. So that could still work. But I think for me it works because I like having a balance, and I like having someone that keeps me so grounded and is kind of removed from it all. And it's been quite nice to almost open his eyes into the world of social media, and he's got a newfound respect for content creators because he sees all the behind the scenes and how much work we put in to things that you wouldn't even think like influencers do. So I think it's a really nice balance, and we're both learning loads about each other's industries rather than coming home and like talking about the same stuff that we've been doing all day as well.
How do you, I mean, you're such a beautiful girl. How do you kind of like keep yourself feeling, strong? Because, I mean, to be in front of the camera, you have to, yeah, I mean, we have highs and low days, right? How do you keep yourself consistent? Like, is there anything that you take in like practice?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard because everyone has days where they feel good, and everyone has days where they're like, oh my God, I just feel so ugly today. And I think one thing I've learned is not to force myself to film content when I'm not feeling 100%, because one, people can see right through it.
Yeah.
And two, you're just not going to feel good about yourself by like forcing yourself to do that. So I think definitely make the most of the good days and the high days, but also it's not that deep to like not look like amazing on social media. Like I literally think I'm just a regular person, and I don't think I'm like this unattainable beauty standard with like filters and all of this stuff. Like I make sure my content is real and relatable, and like especially because I do things like skincare and beauty, like I'm comfortable to be in front of a camera without makeup, and I think that just shows people like what is reality, and like everyone has insecurities. So I think that was a massive thing to overcome and be comfortable doing things like that. So yeah, I've probably had my fair share of like slips and like ugly moments online, but I think I've had enough of them now that like I'm okay with it. But yeah, definitely make the most of the good days where you feel and look your best.
Is there anything you'd say like comfort clothes wise? Because I'm sure there's days, like, and I'm guilty of it, you feel maybe bloated or something, and you need to just, you said earlier about being kind to yourself. Is there something that you'd say like, this is my sort of comfort, like safety clothing?
I mean, I literally wear trackies and hoodies like 90% of the time. I think, why would anyone actively choose to put themselves in denim when you're at home? Like, it's not comfortable. And I show all that. Like, I love comfy, cozy clothing, especially because I work from home now. So anything that keeps me warm and feels like a little mattress and duvet on me, I love.
No, I love that. So as well, like, as we're going back to like, obviously you are very beautiful and you have a good following, coming across opportunities and deciphering like which ones are genuine and congruent and which ones are maybe just to kind of like talk to you. How do you go about that process?
I think I'm now like skeptical of anyone and everything that like approaches me, and I will always make sure I ask all the right questions, I get all the information I need, and I think this is where someone like manager or management comes in. So I was self-managed for a really long time. I think I know what I need to ask, and I know to like look out for certain things. So like if a person is approaching you, like it's always important to get like the background information. If you need things like, their business like history or like company's house registration, you should always have contracts in place. You should always have invoices in place, like things like that. I've learned along the way of like how to protect yourself as an individual. But I think having a management also massively helps because they're obviously able to scout out every single inbound request, and they do that's their job essentially. So I think it's knowing all the right things to look out for and the questions to ask.
So how do you go about getting a manager?
It's a really interesting process because everyone does it differently. But I think as you grow online, you will always get managements that approach you. I never wanted to sign with management for a really long time because I was like, I know what I'm doing and no one's going to do this job the way I want it done and to the quality that I expect. And for a long time I felt that way, and then it just got to a point where I literally couldn't manage everything by myself, and I had to like almost bite that bullet and be like, no, outsourcing and like delegating things is how I'm going to get to the next step, because then I can spend more time focusing on what I enjoy, which is the actual content creation side of it. So I actually had lots of different meetings with so many different managements for such a long time before I agreed to sign anything. And my first experience with management wasn't that great. And now my current managers, I think they're amazing. So it is very hit and miss, and it depends on your team and your actual talent manager and their people around you as well. So it's one of those things that people have really good experiences and really bad experiences. A lot of it is trial and error as well. But I think don't be afraid to speak to people. Word of mouth is so important in this industry as well.
So how do you said about like obviously delegating it to a manager and trying to make sure that it's still fitting into like what you want to be shown and how you want it to be shown. How did you go about that process? Is it like meetings? Is it like literally structuring to the point where it was like fully processed?
Like, I think the job with management, and it depends obviously on every single different team, but my management look at kind of the everyday logistical side of stuff, which is the admin. So that will be like the invoicing, the meetings, the putting it into my calendar, all of that. But they will also have a wider creative strategy around what I want and where I want to go. So we will only really be talking to brands and opportunities that align with my strategy. And quite often there'll be something that comes in which is so unrelated to anything I've ever done that they'll just be like, we know that you don't want to do this. However, they do have like an obligation to present everything that comes in to me, so I can pick and choose. But as long as we're on the same page, I think that's how it works.
No, I think that's great. I've loved talking to you. Thank you so much for like all of your.
Sorry, Shana, one thing. Sky Awards. You nominated for. No, there was a.
Not me.
There was a.
The fashion creator of the year. Yeah. So it was the Be Creator Award. Yeah.
That's the one. I think. Can you? Do you know much about that one?
I don't know.
Be Creator Awards. Okay, we'll leave that one then. Is there anything that you wanna touch on? Do you feel like we've missed anything that you wanna?
I don't know. I can't think on the spot. We've done a lot on. I guess you didn't really talk about like the benefits of like sports, but you said you were going to cut that whole thing out, right? For the fitness stuff.
We've got the time now. So
if you want to, I think that's a big one. And then we've spoken loads about fashion, and the other thing is like the finance side, but like you've spoken about my corporate job and not really why I left or any of that. So I guess you can touch upon that.
Yeah, we'll do those because we're going to.
If you've got the time, just ask it, and then if you don't want to use it, you don't have to. Also, this is again unrelated, but like if you want to talk about like representation and diversity in the industry and things like that, I don't know if that's something you want to talk about.
Yeah, I think we'll get to it. Let me just try and get my list up of what.
Yeah.
I think we told such a nice story.
Yeah.
That it was hard to circle back to where we wanted to go. Let me write this down so I just don't forget my prompt points. Okay. So sports. South Asian representation, isn't it? You wanted to talk about?
Yeah.
Perfect. That's fine. Okay, wicked. I didn't actually think we'll actually have time for it, so I'm glad we've got.
Yeah, might as well.
Okay, right. Okay, so obviously netball, big on netball.
Yeah.
Yeah. What position did you play?
I play everything, but mainly centre court because obviously I'm small.
Oh, you've got to be super fit for centre, don't you?
Yeah, you are literally sprinting up and down the court. So yeah, love a little bit of mid-court movement.
Yeah. So obviously netball, you go to the gym. How important is fitness within your life, or how important is it also, do you feel, for other people's lives?
I mean, I think being physically fit is one of the most important things anyone can do for themselves. I think the impact that has in so many areas of their life, people really underestimate. For me, it was never about like going to the gym. I actually hated the gym.
Yeah.
I just liked sports. So I played so many different sports growing up, and that was my form of fitness. But then when I got injured and I could no longer play sports and I had to be in the gym 4 times a week, that's when I really discovered like my love for just staying fit and being consistent with going to the gym. So yeah, I think it allows you to have like a clear mind. It allows you to be productive. Obviously, you release hormones that are beneficial to you in so many different ways. And yeah, just like being physically fit is just an element of like commitment and drive that people need, and that they can basically develop by doing that.
Yeah. So there's a perception of the gym at the moment from young women or women in general trying to get into fitness that they don't want to go into the free weights area. And I always say, listen, that is the number one place where you should go. What do you think about that? Is there like perception in your mind that you don't want to kind of do weights and stuff, or do you feel like you do everything?
I actually never realised how important weights were and like strength training. So I loved cardio, but I actually got a PT last year, and I think that was one of the best things I ever did, because I never really understood like which exercise benefit me in which areas, and like what I should be doing more of and how much weight to be using. So I would definitely recommend to any woman watching this, if you're not comfortable in the gym or you don't quite know what you're doing, get a PT for a bit and learn as much as you can, write notes, and then understand like the different ways you can benefit your body, because I think it is really important to strength train and do like core training on top of cardio. And the difference I've seen is, especially just like physically in my body, which isn't the reason I'm doing it, but by just strength training and not doing cardio, it's been amazing. So I never realised the benefit of it.
Yeah. And obviously this now it's unrelated, so cut right now. Now we're going to go back to what we missed from the corporate job. So obviously jobs galore, did you get a lot of job offers after university?
So I did an internship. I actually did 2 internships in my summer at second year.
Right.
And from those internships, I converted those both to graduate schemes. Right. So I actually didn't apply for any jobs because I had 2 grad jobs waiting for me.
Yeah.
So I was really lucky in that sense, because I worked really hard to get those internships, because it's a lot easier, I think, to convert internships to grad schemes. So yeah, I had the choice of those 2.
Okay.
Picked one.
Yeah.
And went down that route.
Okay. So obviously you were in the job for quite a while, because you didn't leave straight away. So why is it that you left? Because it wasn't one job. There was a few jobs that led up to, let's say Tanvi the influencer. So what is it that made you leave?
I think it got to a point, as I mentioned before, like balancing corporate and social media together was really difficult. Towards the end, I felt like I was literally working 24 hours a day, all around the clock. And I guess if I was working normal working hours, it would have been a little bit more manageable. But towards the end of my corporate job, I was working ridiculous hours. I was working like 12-hour days minimum every day. And then some days I was working like 15, 16-hour days.
Okay.
I was working all weekend. And I think that just really ruined my mental health. Like my well-being was on the floor, and I was having breakdowns all the time. And then it just got to a point where I was like, this isn't normal, like this isn't okay, and I can't continue like this. So that is when I then actually got a different corporate job. It was actually at another Big Four, but it was in a different industry where I thought I would have a better balance between work and life, and it gave me more time to do my social media stuff. But I think at that point I'd just fallen out of love with the corporate world in general, because I was like, I can either pick and choose my day and have the flexibility to wake up when I want, go to the gym when I want, eat when I want. And I like literally didn't even get time to eat when I was in a corporate job. I could have that, or I have to be stuck to a desk job for 12 hours of a day. And I just realized like the benefit to my mental health of being self-employed was worth it to me. So I think that was the last straw.
Do you feel like you weren't rewarded appropriately when you were, with the Big Four?
It's hard to say, because I think it's common knowledge that I don't think the Big Four pays the best. If you move to a boutique, you would probably double your salary overnight. But the thing with the Big Four, which I don't think people talk enough about, is that honestly the people there are amazing and the training is incredible. I learned so much from my first Big Four job. I was there for 3 years, and I probably grew and like escalated so quickly in my career, and even just me as a person. Like the skills I developed, I'm not sure I would have got at a different type of firm. And then on top of that, they obviously pay for your entire professional qualification, which is like 20 grand. So yeah, while I don't think I was remunerated enough for the hours I did, I think if it was like a normal working job, it was very well paid. It was just that we weren't paid for overtime. And that was a lot.
So you did that like kind of out of your own will to succeed, your own drive, your own determination to try and move up the ladder, basically.
I mean, you didn't really get a choice.
Oh, okay.
So because you're like a grad and everyone around you is working those hours, like everyone is getting a taxi home at 3 a.m. Everyone is having dinner in the office. Like, you can't be that one person that's like, oh, I'm going to go do the rest of my work from the comfort of my home so I can actually have dinner with my family. You can't really be that person. And if you're that person, I feel like it would make you feel inadequate, or that you don't deserve to be there, or that you're not as kind of good as everyone else. And that sucks, because I didn't see my parents for like 3 months, basically.
Wow. Okay.
So
obviously, a bit of history on me, which I'll touch upon, is that I wasn't managed correctly. I'm very difficult to manage. Do you feel like you weren't managed correctly?
I think everyone that was there was doing the best they could. I think given the amount of work we had to do, and especially the last year I was actually on a new client, it was a global investment bank, and parts of it were just purely in lockdown as well. So it made it very difficult. I think everyone there was doing the best they could. I think the responsibility lies on the firm as a whole to ensure that there's boundaries being set with the working hours people are doing. Also to ensure that there are tools and things in place that are looking after people's mental health, but also to ensure there's enough resources. I think the Big Four are known for just not hiring enough people, because then the people that are there are stretched so thin. And that is why we had to work the hours we did, and that is why we had to work to the deadlines that were just unrealistic for the team sizes. So I don't think it was a management issue. I think it was a firm-wide issue, in terms of like budget and resources and things like that.
Okay. Is there anything else that you want to touch before we move on to?
No,
that was really good.
I think that's good.
I felt the passion out of that. I'm just conscious of time as well for you as well.
Yeah.
Right. So, one of the big things that you talk about a lot is South Asian representation. And you're from the Guju community, that's the Gujarati, which if everyone doesn't know. So, firstly, can you speak the language?
I can. I can read and write.
Okay.
I can speak.
Yeah.
I did my GCSE when I was like, I want to say like 14.
Yeah.
So I think that's something my parents were really passionate about, making sure we could both read and write. And I'm glad they did.
Yeah.
People still make fun of my accent because I speak in a British accent, but obviously that is all I know.
Broken, yeah.
Yeah, but like I definitely can read and write. And also communicating with my grandparents was so important to me, and they couldn't speak that much English. So it forced me to practice loads.
Do you say ba or nani, or what do you
Yeah.
say?
So my ba, who passed away a few months ago, and then my nanny, my nana. So my nanny's the only one left.
Oh, okay.
She's standing strong. But yeah, at least I can communicate with her in Gujarati.
How close are you with your nani and ba, and like were you very close?
So close. My ba actually lived with us, so I lived with my ba my whole life. And because I still lived at home, it was literally like an unbreakable bond. So really, really close with all my family and grandparents. I'm really fortunate that I had that much time with most of them.
Okay, and obviously what you're doing is not very many people within the community. Even if we just look at Asian culture in general, not doing what you're doing, like how has it been like being? Well, should we say, is it the only brown girl that we know to like really break in the industry?
I think there's more.
Now there's quite a few, but yeah, obviously I think I would say you're probably the pioneer. I think
that's really kind. I think there's lots, and like to be honest, between now and when I started doing it properly like 2 years ago, there's been so many that have kind of grown, and it's great to see the representation grow. I think when I started, it was really, really difficult because you didn't see that many brown people doing social media, and there was always a few that did a little bit of radio, there were a few that did acting, there were a few that did social media, and it's really hard to do a career where you don't see people that are successful that look like you, because it makes you feel like, oh, like what went wrong, or why isn't it worked out for them? Like this isn't a career that I can see myself doing long term. But then again, like that, like I wanted to also be the representation for like girls who are 10 years younger than me who might want to go down it and be like, no, you can do it, you can be successful. I think the difficulty comes in breaking out of the South Asian bubble and then going on to like mainstream things. And I think it's such a nuanced thing to talk about, but like a lot of South Asian creators will blow up or do really well because of their South Asian content, and I did too. And the reason where I am now is because of the support from the South Asian community. But you can't progress and do something long term by only appealing to one sector of the market. You need to be marketable to everyone that watches your content, essentially. So for me, I think the biggest challenge was almost breaking away a little bit from South Asian content and talking about it 24/7, and actually talking about things that all women of all colours can relate to, or anyone who's my age in their mid-20s can relate to, or anyone working in this job or struggling with this. And I think that's where the challenge comes, and I think there aren't that many people that have successfully been able to do that.
Because you're really comfortable with, obviously, you know, your background, so much so that you were sorry to an awards, a big award show. Tell us about that. How did it feel being nominated for, like, I think it was the Fashion Creator Award, right? You said,
yeah,
being nominated. Then obviously we saw you. I think there was a red carpet. You were dressed in a really nice sari and stuff. Well, it was sari, right?
It was sari.
So how did that make you feel? Like
I think it was first of all, any award ceremony that I go to now, like, I'm so adamant on wearing South Asian clothing. Like, I think it's so important to represent our culture in anything that we do, and I think that is like an elevated platform to do it, where there's so many eyes on you, so many photos and videos. Like, it's an amazing opportunity to showcase how incredible our culture could be in the form of fashion. And then to be nominated for Fashion Creator of the Year was like a step ahead, where I was like, okay, well, I'm representing the fashion category. Of course, I'm going to wear what I know to be like the most fashionable thing ever, which is a sari. And to be nominated with people that, like, you know, I was the only South Asian person in that category. I really felt like proud to wear a sari on a red carpet that was at a mainstream event, not like an Asian award ceremony. And I'm going to continue to do that. Like, I think it's so important that people know more about our culture, and I think fashion's such a great way to do that.
And have you had any hate or any, let's say, inappropriate DMs from you know our community, where it said, listen, like, you're not representing us well? Have you ever had that kind of?
Oh my God, all the time.
All the time.
All the time. I think I love being South Asian, but I also think we're sometimes our biggest enemies. I think we often are so quick to jump at people that are not like hating on the community, but just challenging things or questioning things, or saying like we can do better as a community. I always talk about how, especially when it comes to social media and brand deals, South Asians are the one group of people that I have the biggest problem with either getting paid at all or getting paid on time, or like respecting your fees, respecting your boundaries. And it's that one community. And I've worked with every color under the sun, and it always seems to be that recurring theme. And I think it's such a shame, because how are these South Asian creatives and creators meant to progress when we're not supported financially as a career from our own community? I think that is the most frustrating part about our community, is that we love to hate on one another. So as much as I love to like celebrate the positives in the culture, I always like to talk about how we can do better as a community to really help people progress. And like, if you don't support your own community, how are we then meant to be the representation on the big screens, on the billboards? Because we weren't able to get there because we were held back.
Do you feel like, this is obviously my experience, I'm not sure if it relates to you, but do you feel like the jealousy comes from the constant battle, or you're in a constant race with like maybe cousins, maybe not so brothers, but cousins and stuff, that way you're kind of chachi, auntie, uncles are like constantly comparing you to one another? Do you feel like that is a big problem in the community?
Yeah, I think generally the community has this thing where it just likes to compare you to everyone around you. From like, oh, this person got an A, why didn't you get an A? Like, why didn't you get an A star? And so like that is almost rooted in our culture, and it's such a shame. And I do think our generation is the one that is going to change that, because I feel it less and less so. And my parents never did that to me, so I guess maybe I didn't experience it in the same way. But I do think there is that like constant underlying sense of competition, and it's a shame because there is room for everyone. I think we would do so much better as a community if we supported one another and we like collaborated and we came together but like I have faced so many times where it's like, oh, like you can't do that because I'm doing it, or like there's only room for one South Asian creator that specifically focuses on this, and that's just not the case.
Yeah, yeah.
There's room for everyone, but you're right. I think it is like rooted at home
Yeah.
and in our culture, so we really need to change it.
Okay. So we need to do better, guys. Now, one thing that I'm going to say, obviously, I always say that Tanvi has also proven that Rome wasn't built in a day. It's taken time, it's taken effort, it's taken persistence, and persistence has beaten resistance. So thank you again for coming on.
Thanks for having
Yeah,
me.
and I think we are. That's a wrap.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
you've
good
covered
time.
so much now.
Yeah.
It's just going to be a
Oh,
big
yeah.
editing job
Oh,
otherwise.
massive.
Yeah.
Massive editing job. But thank you so
No,
much.
thank you for
Yeah,
having
thank
me.
you
It
so
was
much.
really good, really
Yeah.
enjoyable.
And yeah, obviously, what we generally like to do, or we're trying to do, is what we've touched on quite a few things. But it's the business element that we're then gonna probably drop you a DM and say, like, listen, how is it getting on?